Welcome to another edition of Mad Mondays with JB. It's been a couple of weeks, been a minute, but I'm back. Been dealing with some stuff in my personal life, but we're here, we're now, and I'm very, very grateful to have my man, V-Dubs, here today to talk all things sport, politics, mental health, and just general banter. So over to V. Let's have a Reader's Digest of you, mate.
Well, bro, first and foremost, thanks for having us in.
That's the way, my man.
Yeah. It took a little while to get here, but hey, we're here.
That's all that matters.
So hopefully I'll make it worth your while. Where do you want to start? I'll tell you everything. Don't hold back.
All right. So what I think's important is that people get a bit of context about you from a business perspective. And then you today, what you're doing in the world of, because obviously we were introduced through LinkedIn. So through the business platform, we've sort of grown our friendship from there. So I think it's important that let's touch on your background in business, and then let's touch on what you're here today, V formation, and we'll go from there.
All right, we'll run through that. So most people who know me now will probably know me through being a passionate small business advocate. I certainly like to have my rant about politics, but if we throw it back to how did I get here, I spent most of my career, first and foremost, I'm the father of two boys. I've got two sons, 21 and 17, McLean and Thornton, and they're my best mates and motivators, and I write that in my LinkedIn profile. All in all, now it's all about doing exactly what I want to do, but it's got to be relevant and viable. So I started off in corporate in terms of the real world, and most of that was in Japanese corporate. So the two primary employers of me were Sony and Fujifilm, and they kind of crafted my respect for discipline and following process. And probably the anal retentive in me, because I'm a natural OCD. The Japanese were always looking to perfect, and so I was lucky to get up and close to the masters of that. Coming back to the Māori boy from New Zealand that's kind of like learning the Japanese way, wind the clock a little bit forward, and I end up owning my own business in the same consumer electronics. Importer and distributor, very good business. It was called Avalon Audio, and that basically was my introduction to getting out of bed and losing or making your own money every day. And that was kind of how I've arrived at this point where I'm very passionate about small business, because I've seen the highs, the lows, and I've also seen how easily it is to be consumed by a business. And you really get to that point where you think you're socialising, you think you're doing stuff, but the reality is pretty much every brain cell floating around inside your head is about the business. It becomes another person in your life that you're having a relationship with, literally. And that's where, just to finish up on that, I was treating the business like a living organism, and it's not. The people in it are, but the business is just nuts and bolts or plastic and glass or whatever, and we're just shoveling that around.
And I think that's really important to touch on, because obviously I'm currently the owner of a small business, and it resonates so well with me what you just said then, because I'm very honest about, the issues that I suffer through owning a business. And I love owning a business, but it does come with its own trials and tribulations. And one of those is you do become so consumed in it that you sort of lose touch with other aspects of your life that are important. So we really need to find a way to, I personally, and I know a lot of other business owners do, need to find that way to get that balance. And that's what's so good about, having you here today and speaking, is because you've been through that roller coaster. There's so many people in my position that are, they don't know at what stage of the roller coaster they're at, and they're just riding it. And, you never know what's going to happen. So
yeah. And in terms of arriving at where I'm at today, the business was sold in 2017, and to be frank, I was probably just going to go and start up another business, but I realised that I needed some time to stand back and have a look at what I wanted to do with all of the experience I had. And one thing that led to another, I was buddied up with a guy that was struggling in his operation, and so it became a sort of a mock mentor situation.
Yeah.
And at the end of that, I got really good feedback that went well. And I really enjoyed it. So I decided to have a look at what was going on there. And what I realised was, without having an appreciation for it, the experience that you build up, you've got a big goodies bag to dig into. And in that goodies bag, there's demons too.
Yeah.
So it's
100%.
kind of like, I've seen you before. And so having the ability to sit back and reflect about that and go, well, we all have shit going down in our lives, and, touch wood, none of it's going to kill us. It's just that it's a 10 out of 10 on the day it happens. And then, time makes the wine, and you move on. You're able to laugh about it eventually, hopefully.
Cool.
So that's kind of, roughly.
That's a brilliant summary. So while we are running live today, thank you everyone for tuning in. We got a few numbers crunching now. Always good to see all my ex-comrades from the Queensland Police watching. We're going to be running for around 45 minutes, so if you do have any questions from myself or from V-Dubs, shoot them out. I've got the phone here and I can see what's happening. So quick shout out to Amos there down in Christchurch. Awesome tuning in. Timmy Fitz over in Bundaberg, legend. Benny Swords from the mighty Mount Tambo, Canungra, legend. Neil.
Jesus, no one's doing any work back in Australia. Watching you.
All coppers too. The Wasp, aptly named The Wasp by Fatty Vorton.
Nice.
Back in the day, yeah. So
that's got to be a story.
Yeah. Neil Wyatt, one of the coolest blokes I've ever had the opportunity to play football with and get on the terps with. Used to play for the Broncos, so he was pretty sure he come from Toowoomba's Clydesdales. So that's the old Q Cup. And Fatty Vorton, I was watching him play one day, and he absolutely just creased this bloke. And Fatty was like, "Oh yeah, hits so hard it stings," and that's where he got the name Wasp from. So
nice.
He's always been named the Wasp. Yeah. So he'll hate that I just told.
That's a badge of honour.
Yeah, he'll hate
like that.
He also sings
some nicknames are not so fortunate.
Mate, loves a rendition of Kenny Rogers as well. So real good dude. So yeah, thank you everyone for the support. It's awesome seeing everyone tune in. And obviously I'm wearing Queensland Police Service Rugby League shirt from their recent tour of New York, where they play the commemorative game for September 11. So
awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
We always talk about some police yarns and mental health in the coppers, and because that ties into politics for me a lot. So always try and support them when I can, and it's got some pretty tight sleeves as well, so that's always handy. So let's get straight into politics. So you're obviously really outspoken on politics.
Yep.
When I say outspoken, obviously you don't say anything that's too offensive, but you've got.
I'd love to. Yeah.
Wouldn't we all?
Yeah.
But we do have an environment that we have to, tread carefully.
Yeah, we have to manage our words. Obviously, what's swirling around inside our heads and what ends up coming out of our mouth, we hope it's crafted in a way where it gets the point across.
Hey,
but
I've fallen victim to that a few times, but I try to be a little bit more diplomatic now that I'm in the corporate enterprise. So let's talk about politics.
Yeah.
Where do you stand?
Oh, where do I stand? Well, I'm traditionally a National Party, Māori Party supporter, candidate party. And that really hasn't changed. Although right now, if there was an election tomorrow, I really would struggle to hand a vote over to the National Party.
Yep.
That's not to say I'm about to give it to Labor either. But I just think that as a party, they appear to have learnt very little as to why they got biffed out in 2017. And they didn't get biffed out. They got the most votes of any party that was in the election. They just couldn't form a coalition because they had no mates. That doesn't appear to have changed. So there's a lot of dead wood in that party they need to fix, but there's also some good things they've done. The recruitment of Chris Luxon, and clearly the nous he brings around the business sector is fantastic recruitment, so that's really good. And then from the other flip side of it, Māori, in terms of Indigenous values and Māori needing a voice, I just, it's my point of view, but I don't believe that Māori can actually have an independent voice coming out of the ideologies of parties, whether they be left or right. So Labor or National, these are ideologies that came on boats from somewhere up in the Northern Hemisphere to New Zealand, and they don't really fit us. But at the same time, I fully subscribe to Māori being in both of those parties and doing a great job. But I also believe that we need to have someone inside the tent representing our people. So,
Cool.
so that's the passion for the Māori Party.
Excellent, and that's good to know. Obviously, I'm an immigrant to the country, moved over a couple of years ago.
Yeah, aren't we all?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently. So, I come from Australia, where I was obviously a police officer over there. So I've always been very much liberal focused, national focused over here, because you've got Labor and you've got National. So, the strong support for the National Party, Liberal Party over in Australia, who are currently in Parliament. So. But in terms of over here, I don't have much to say, because obviously I would be speaking out of shop from my point of view. So that's really your flaw. But what I can speak on is obviously Simon Bridges come out. Oh, how long ago did he come out and he talked about
the gangs?
The gangs.
Yeah,
like that was his big sort of draw card.
Yeah.
And so, obviously I was a frontline detective over in the Queensland Police when the anti-disestablishment laws were introduced and put into action.
Yes.
And we saw a huge reaction to that, where a lot of the organised motorcycle gangs or criminal motorcycle gangs, CMG, were impacted. Yeah. And then obviously they got scrapped later on in life, but there was a real tangible result there for that period where it was introduced, and it was really really interesting. So,
look, I think that the difficulty we've got in New Zealand is, in my opinion, and I hope that someone on here gets this back to Commissioner of Police Mike Bush, is that the New Zealand Police Force, which I believe is the absolute best in the world, is under real duress in the sense that it comes across as being far too politicised. It needs to be left to get on and do its job. I remember when I left school, I wanted to be a policeman. I just thought, what a cool job to do, where your involvement in the community was something, and just the camaraderie of the New Zealand Police Force. But what I think, and this is probably a fairly agricultural summary, the last 30 years, if you look at New Zealand, a lot of immigration, a lot of changes society. New Zealand has changed. So if you were here 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000 now, we are so different. The New Zealand Police Force has not evolved accordingly. About the only difference that I can see from the outside is they're carrying tasers today and iPhone XRs, which have got a shitload of information inside them. Outside of that, they still look about the same, still on Holden Commodores, still got lights on top of them.
They're still driving Holdens. I don't know how many Holdens are left in Aussie.
And I don't know what the deal is for police now, because back in my day, you kind of had to be 5'10" and up. Well, now most of the people that I see wandering around with police uniforms on couldn't even get on a ride down at Rainbow Park. They're about this tall. So I don't know what's going on with the police, mate.
Well, I know.
Have to crawl through little holes or things.
I don't know what their recruitment policies are here in New Zealand.
Well, it's more flexible because it's hard to get police. They're losing more than they're recruiting, and that's it. And someone in there might say no, but that's what it looks like.
And I mean, there's a fair argument, which I'm a huge advocate for, is obviously when I was a detective, they used to have the, back in the day, the threshold used to be you had to be 6 foot male to be a copper. Now we've got 4 foot women.
And that was for the woman.
Now we've got 4 foot women in the police. And some of the best police officers I worked with were short women. Amazing communicators. And I used to love going to a job where if I wasn't the best communicator, I didn't necessarily need someone else who was my size that could get in a scrap if they needed to. I needed someone that could really articulate to someone that didn't want to be spoken to. And so there are pros and cons. So I was sort of, whilst I'm not an advocate of what the Queensland Police introduced, because they introduced a 50-50 gender, bang. Has to be 50% women, has to be 50% male, regardless of their competency.
Wow.
So that's been scrapped by the new commissioner, which is great, because I feel like what it really did was, by putting, allowing women into it that necessarily didn't fit the criteria, it really tarnished the reputation of the women that are in there, that are, work so hard to get such good grading to come in before those gender equality 50-50 thresholds were made.
Let's be frank on the gender equality, whether it's at boardroom level at here in New Zealand or Fonterra or whatever in the police force, it's really just a means to an end. So we know that we could never have a policy like that long term. Ultimately, you want the best people. That's all. Turning up and you take them.
Regardless of gender, regardless of religion, regardless of anything. If the best person for the job, like we've seen in the Queensland Police, was deemed to be Commissioner Katarina Carroll, was a female. And she's a commissioner of police, and she's, from all reports, is doing a very good job. I'm not obviously across it to the degree I need to be, but that just shows that it doesn't necessarily need to be a 6 foot male to be doing the best job. So horses for courses.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, just one to finish off on the New Zealand police. You're coming in from Australia to New Zealand. Like, my perception is that our police force is by and large clean. I don't think they have a corruption problem. Sure, shenanigans goes on, but anywhere where you throw a whole lot of humans, something's going to happen.
I was the king for shenanigan problems in the police, mate. I was a HR nightmare.
Yeah,
so.
well, and that is the thing, is that I think that we actually have a police force that I still believe is up there in, if not the best, it's one of the best police forces in the world. But it has got, in my opinion, to be left to do its job. Yep. And my feeling is it's hamstrung by being it's almost like an over-parented kid,
yep.
That's been brought up by helicopter parents.
Yep.
They're operating as if they're under the heat lamp of a political system.
Well, they kind of are, because obviously, and we look at, again, all my opinions and stuff come from my time in Australia in the Queensland Police Service, so I can't speak on behalf of the New Zealand coppers because I wasn't a copper here.
Yeah.
But in the Queensland Police, we were very driven by what Parliament wanted.
Yes.
So if they wanted stats in traffic safety,
yeah,
the bosses would go in for a meeting and then they would come out, we need to get more figures over here.
Yeah.
And it's like, why can't we just do our job?
Yeah.
Don't argue.
Yeah.
This is what we're getting. And we had, they talk about, we never had kill sheets. We always had kill sheets. Bergs are up. We need to get those. We need to solve some bergs, because it's all allows that particular area, the mayor of that area, or that state, to have some sort of something to take to.
And the question has to be asked is, what threat does that pose to true justice? Because if you think in private enterprise, the CEO is going to manipulate a business to deliver his bonus. Right.
Yep.
So if you've got targets,
we've seen that time and time again.
Yeah,
haven't we?
absolutely. And so self-interest kicks in, and even if it's just reputation-wise, not like a financial benefit. And that's what worries me, is that the police almost have to stop reading the paper.
Yep.
And just get on and do what they know.
And it's hard. And anyone that's watching this that's from the Queensland Police know that my family's been through a hell of a lot in the coppers, and I still to this day don't speak ill, because I was a police officer for several years, and it is a hard job.
Yeah.
They're under so much scrutiny on the job, off the job. So even when you're not at work, you're still under the scrutiny, and I used to fall all that all the time. Like, I'd go out on the drink and get up to a little bit of strife, and I'd get the ruler over the knuckles. It was just like you couldn't switch off from policing, and it takes such a toll, and it takes an immense human being to be a police officer. And I've got so much respect for the New Zealand police. I know a few of them. I've had the luxury of dealing with a few of them, and I even so funny. I played for South Logan Magpies over in, so it's the Intrust Super Cup, so one below the NRL. And there was a young fella over there who was a Kiwi, and we were playing over there in Australia. And I moved over here, and I went to Mount Smart one day because the Australian police were playing the Kiwi police. And I managed to get a seat there and help the Aussie boys just chit chat pretty much. I was there for banter. And this fella was running around as 5'8", and I was like, no way. Dead set. So Ihaka moved back over. He went over, I think he went to England for a little bit, then he moved back over here, joined the Coppers. And the bloke I was playing at South Logan with was now over here as a serving frontline South Auckland. And I was like, 6 degrees of separation, man. So, that was a perfect example of the kind of people that join the police, and the immense respect that you can have for him, because I'm just like, what a legend. He's gone, he's played for, he's moved back to New Zealand, and he wants to serve a purpose, which is protecting the community. It's amazing.
And going back round to, in terms of getting onto the police chat, and we talked about Simon and, the proposed way of tackling the gangs. I think that we're damned if we do, damned if we don't with the gangs. So basically, we don't want a war, but at the same time, we've got a situation with a scourge on society. Where do we start? We have to start somewhere. And clearly, we in terms of killing a rat, right? Normally, you want to cut off its head. So the solution's not to send RoboCop in with flamethrowers and grenades and clean out the gang headquarters. The solution is, how do we stop recruiting, full stop? But you just can't do that. You've got to come in from both ends. Now, I'm not talking like I'd have a bloody clue how to do this, but I completely get it, where Simon is coming from and saying, you know what, we should actually say that we do give a shit and we're going to take it seriously. And the gangs do need to be put on notice that we're not going to put up with their shit. Because they are ruining people's lives. They are a scourge on society. And any of them that don't believe that that's true, I'd be more than happy to meet them and see if we could agree that I'm wrong. Would doubt it very much. And
it's kind of one of those hard ones, because when I was a detective in the police and still playing football, like I was, we used to have this thing called, what was it called? dangerous liaisons.
Yep.
So like if you, I think that's what it's called. If any of the coppers that are watching this, that it's not called that. I think that's what it was called. But you
They're
used
saying, kill it.
Oh, you used to have to submit a form. So if like you were hanging around people that so you weren't involved in the motorcycle gangs, but you knew someone, you had to fill out a form and get vetted to say that you're allowed to hang out with this person in your off time. But I used to know a couple of them, and they were really good people, but they were involved in it.
Yep.
And it was sort of like, when people talk about, they talk about the gangs, they put this umbrella. There are good people within those gangs, but what those gangs stand for is sort of at that root of the problem, because it's all systemic from, in my opinion, systemic from that original gang mentality, which was to go against justice. And it's all systemic from there. So whilst there are good people in the gangs, and there are there, but it's that whole
and let's put the gang thing into context too, Johnny, because basically for a gang situation to burgeon, you need disenfranchised and lost in society, where they go, well, I might as well go with this crew. So it's when we say the word gang and we're visualizing Harley Davidson's dudes with patches on their backs looking pretty scary. Look, a gang is the Destiny Church. It's a place that just basically
a congregation of people.
It's anything that's got people that turn up where they feel like it's basically a place of safety, support, family. So it's all of the things that are missing out of their lives. They're drawn to this. So we shouldn't just slot this down on the gangs. There's lots of clusters of people where they look at society out and then go, too hard, I'm going this way.
And that's a really good point.
And so I'm certainly not suggesting that what Simon Bridges is doing is going kick down the door of Destiny Church, but the point sort of thing, I think Tama can do that all on his own, by the way that they roll, to be frank.
It's an interesting sort of landscape, and I'll be very interested to see how the coalition tackles it.
And what will that coalition be? Because if
100%.
nationalists to get into power, it's going to be a close election, right? So flip a coin, who knows what way it's going to go. We know that there will be a Greens Labor coalition, and who knows what happens to first, if they will be there at all. But the reality is that from the national side, ACT is their only sure bet. Sustainability New Zealand.
I'm pretty sure, and that's Mr. Seymour. From
David
Seymour. He was on, so Holly Bennett runs an political power hour. So sorry, Holly, we're sort of cutting into your segment here, but I'm sure
she'll send you an invoice for sure.
You'll forgive us. You'll forgive us. But he was on here talking. So this is very much for those that aren't fully across the political
or that
landscape,
interested
or that interested. So you've got Labor Greens, National ACT.
ACT. That's right.
And what's ACT stand for?
You know what? I don't know, and I should. But let's just call it
ACT Party.
But look, to be fair, I just see ACT as another national seat. That will all fall pregnant before ACT does anything with anyone else other than national.
Right.
So they really are. But to be, the thing is that David's kind of found his voice this last 3 years, and the euthanasia bill sort of gave him a little bit of profile. So did the guns. And I think that the thing is that we need someone like an ACT party in there to represent. And I actually think ACT are going to grow at this election. I think that obviously I'm passionate about the Māori party, and the question that everybody's asking is, should they get a seat or two, which is looking like they will, where do they go? Because they could actually end up being the kingmaker on September the 19th in terms of they could break or make National or Labour. So that's the good one. Outside of that, we've got the Opportunities Party, top, and we've got Sustainability New Zealand, which is kind of the new version of Greens. Sustainability New Zealand looks like it's disappeared up its own exhaust pipe. They've got their own internal issues, and I don't think they're going to be there at all. And look, I've got a lot of time for Jeff Simmons at top. I think he speaks well. But once again, I don't. It's going to be a Labor national race with some hangers-on.
So it's always
so
same as it's always
business
been.
as usual. So let's not be talking about the semantics of what's going on around the outside.
Labor versus national.
And I think that anyone who's got 1p rolling around in their head will watch the Māoris, because I do believe they're going to have a couple of seats. Labor have had all 7 Māori seats for 3 years, and from a Māori perspective, there's been little achieved in that time. So the natural swing will be a couple will go back the Māori way.
Right.
So we'll see what happens on election night.
Well, we'll be sure to keep. I'm sure the papers will always keep us updated.
My gut feel is Māori will swing the national way.
So you think National will win?
That'd be my gut feel, and that's probably the way that I would push them as I was advising. I think if you spoke to any Māori on the street as soon as you went past Mount Wellington South, Labour.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but that's preaching to the converted.
Right.
We've got to look at the voters that are coming in that actually give a shit about where Māori are going as a people, and they're going to be primarily new voters.
Right.
So because if you look at the last 3 elections, the Māori Party's got the same number of votes, about 29, 30,000, so that, the same family and friends have been voting for them for 3 elections.
Interesting.
So it's about getting some more
cool
newbies.
All right, so that's politics covered.
There's politics, yeah.
Let's talk about sport.
Yeah.
Because I always, on Mad Mondays, we like to talk about sports, one of my headlines, because I usually talk about fishing because I do a bit of that.
Yeah.
I want to recap the trials on the weekend. So
now we're only going to stick with league, because that's the only sport I understand.
Good, man. Resonates well with me. I know, I play a bit of rugby.
Yeah.
Played. I'm sort of umming and ahhing whether I have another season of it. But, I've got to take that one up yet.
I've never played a game of league, but I love it.
It's a great sport. Great sport.
Rugby's just come too complicated.
So we had the mighty Wowos played the Tigers at Rotorua on the weekend.
Yeah.
Yeah,
well, look, there's not a lot to talk about there. I think if you saw the first 20 minutes, you'd be encouraged that there was a chance or some hope. But the fact is that the rest of it looked like they'd clocked off, and they were probably more concerned about going into the season in one piece.
Standard Wowos.
Yeah, because bits and pieces are falling off. They got, as a squad, it's not a top 8 squad in my mind. There's some bloody good players in there, but then look across the other squads across the competition, and there's some fantastic squads out there.
Yeah, it was an interesting. I watched all the trials on the week. Well, most of them, or tried to. If not, I watched the highlights, and it was an interesting sort of dynamic. I mean, the Mighty Knights put 50 points on the Roosters, but it wasn't the Roosters; it was their
number 2's
Jersey Flegg team.
Yep.
But they looked pretty polished. The Bulldogs almost done the Raiders.
Yep.
So the Bulldogs look to have taken that form from the end of last year, because they played really well on the back end of last year. And they've looked to have taken that across through the new year.
Do you know, one of the scary things about the Aussie teams, if you go across Broncos, Raiders and that, for 3-4 years now, there's been some really exciting young talent coming through in Australia that the clubs are holding on to.
Yep.
That's
half the battle, isn't it?
And that's our problem, is that,
retaining the juniors.
they're packing up sticks and chasing the dollar elsewhere. So...
I was talking to you before off air, is, with Tamaora that I set up with a few friends, we've got a young kid from the Northland.
Yep.
Edaru Shelford.
Yep.
He's now playing 20s at the Central Queensland Capras. Shout out to Whitey, who's just commented on that. He's from Rockhampton, so Ed's there at the moment. So he's a 20-year-old from the Northland.
Yep.
And we've got him over there now, and he's in the Broncos system. So that's another kid that slipped through the Warriors,
Yeah.
And he's a gun.
Yeah.
Like, I've got anyone, if I say anyone up in the Northland, they go, how's this kid not even got some training gear from the Warriors to try and keep him here, and it's just, and I saw him and I went, this kid needs to be put in a system, and he needs to be given every opportunity possible for himself to shine.
Yep.
And now he's gone over there, and now he's forging his own legacy, because the big thing we're setting up Tamaora, which what we did was making sure that it wasn't me coming in trying to help this kid.
Yep.
It was me creating a pathway for him to shine on his own.
Yep.
Because that was really important for me with the cultural ties to it.
Yeah.
So we set that up, and he's our legacy superstar.
Well, we've got so much resource here. Well, we'll say resource. We've got a deep, rich bed of young kids.
100%.
That and I think that one of the difficulties the NRL suffers from is that the power base the agents have, and there needs to be some fresh eyes and ears cast on that part. Well, I know Sione Famuina at Athlete Empire is trying to crack, that in his way, and I'm pretty sure that he'll get there, but we need more of that mentality.
And obviously we're a not-for-profit.
Yep.
So we're an NFP, so ours is not about, we're not trying to take the young talent and then commercialise it.
Yeah.
What I want to see is the kids out in the bush getting an opportunity, because I know where I grew up out in the bush in Australia.
So how do you reach, from Tamaora's perspective, how do people know how to get to you? So
it's not about them coming to us, it's about us coming to them.
Right, so you are actively scouting?
I would say we're
talent's talent, right?
So what by actively scouting is I might speak to a principal of a high school,
right,
and I might say, this is what we're doing. So I've set up two bases in Queensland with Q Cup teams that feed straight to the Melbourne Storm or the Brisbane Broncos.
Yep.
So I've said, if I see a kid that I go, he's got something.
Yep.
They will provide the opportunity for him to go over there and make a case for himself.
Right.
So it's not about, I'm not giving them empty promises. I'm not giving them anything. I'm going to the kid. I'm going, look, I can get you the opportunity.
Yep.
It's up to you to do the 1%ers.
Yep.
To potentially get that,
Yes.
get that chance.
Yep.
And then that's really big on me and I've got Keteru Savage who's helping. So he's from down, I think he's Rotorua.
Yep.
And he used to be a gun. Like he was like handpicked by back at the late and great Artie Beatson. We saw him saw him playing back in the day. And called Sticky Stewart.
Great guy.
Called Sticky Stewart at the
times.
Roosters and said, Keru, he's there. You need him. So he went over to Sydney and come back. Didn't work out for him, and so he's on board helping with a lot of that. So and I thought it was really important that for what I was doing, that I had some really good Māori people helping me with it, because for me to just come over here as an immigrant and then start going, I can help you here. It needed to have that authenticity, and it really needs, because Māori understand Māori. And I understand that more than most.
And that's one of the things we touched on before we kicked off here, is that, I think it's a little bit of a myth, but within the Warriors, they've always been this rumour that it's been really hard to get a coach to tap into the psyche of the Polynesian aspect of the team. And I think that there's an element of substance in that. But then, if you're a professional athlete, you're a professional athlete,
100%.
and you're rocking up to play, and so a lot of that doesn't wash on me. And I think that where the club, if you look at the best eras, it was when we had Aussie discipline in the club. If you look at the Cleary era, even Daniel Anderson, and there was other things that weren't right at those times, but the best league we played was when the Kevin Campions were here, and those people that brought with them.
You even had that really strong period. Well, Michael Luck.
Yeah.
I've got an immense respect for Michael Luck, because I've heard a lot of positive things about him from his training mentality. And he's just the ultimate professional.
Well, genetically, on paper, he actually wasn't a gifted athlete.
No,
it was all heart.
But same as Alan Tongue. You look at Tungy, and I mean, I feel like the era sort of for the Warriors sort of ended when Simon Mannering retired. Because Manners was that great white hope.
He was the last. If you go back through some of the greats like the Steve Prices and the Ruben Wickies and that, you're right that Mannering was that sort of.
He grafted, man. He has such a motor,
and he was a class human being. And that mattered off the field. And I think that's some of the stuff that people talk about, things we didn't see about Simon. So but it's going to be a hard road to hoe for the Warriors, and they are probably best to stop reading the paper. To be frank, I think they'll find it quite depressing. The media will start hooking into them.
But that's New Zealand's so small that the media just smashes everyone. Like no one's safe in the New Zealand rags, because it's such a small, and everyone's reading it. They can't escape it.
Yeah, I don't think our journalists are any more scathing than the Aussies. But I think what you did right, is that it hurts because we're such a small village.
And that's what it is.
So everybody knows you. Yeah, you can't stand in the supermarket and not be recognised.
Journalists are journalists, aren't they?
That's right. They get paid to do that, and we'll come on to the papers in a minute, because New Zealand journalism has definitely got a huge amount of influence. We've just come off politics. They write like, by and large, most people are really thick, and that's the problem with journalists in New Zealand.
So I've got this will be a good one for you, V-Dubs. What are your thoughts on the Australian deportation program with Kiwis who identify as Australian? Dun, 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 dun.
Yeah, no, look, I'm cut and dried on that. I think if we've got Kiwis in Australia that are a pain in the ass, ship them out.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a big...
I agree.
And we need to be just as transparent the other way. Obviously, the problem's bigger on that side of the ditch.
Yep.
And I think it goes back generationally to when Bondi Beach was a dump. It's not anymore. But when I read in the press that, Jacinda's given ScoMo a little bit of a ticking off and shit like that, it's like, really?
Yeah.
I mean, we just can't ship our shit to Australia and think that they're not going to get a little pissed off about it.
Yeah.
So I'm very black and white.
Yeah, and I'm you're preaching to the choir, because obviously I can't.
It's not even worthy of a news article.
Yeah. And I'm not really across Australian politics, because obviously I live here now. But ScoMo stood firm on that, and he basically said, if you migrate to Australia and you commit crimes in Australia and you're not Australian born, back to your mother country.
And the thing is for ScoMo, because he came out of the bushfire thing looking like such a numpty, this is gold for him.
It's something good PR.
Yeah. So where Simon can crack on about the gang, ScoMo, this is a gift. For him. So I don't sort of hold it against him that he's going to crack on about that.
I've been referred to as the male version of Jacinda Ardern.
You? And could he expand on that? Is there anything in particular?
He can't expand.
He's expanded as far as he can.
He's a New South Welshman guy. We'll cut him some slack. But very good. So we've got some good response there from the people that asked that question about the deportation thing. And I mean, for me, it's a no-brainer. Like you said, it shouldn't even be newsworthy. You know, I don't even know why. You know, whether Jacinda was trying to just get some PR. I don't know what the
it's election year. Yeah, 100%. And I think, look, she would have cracked down on it if it wasn't election year either. But, you know, all we want to be doing is, Australia is still our most important partner in more senses than just trading, right?
Yep.
We need Australia and a great relationship. So this is something where you can't be telling me that they have such a poor relationship that they're slagging each other in the press like this.
It's just...
They're going off the side and going, okay, that was a bit of shits and giggles out there. Let's get on and fix this properly.
Because they both benefited from it.
That's right.
So like Jacinda benefited because the Kiwis see it and they get that spin.
Yeah.
Australians get the other spin.
And this sort of comes back to what I say about we're treated like we're really, you know, we're as thick as pig shit in terms of how we're delivered the news like that.
So that for everyone watching, that's a good little, good little bit of context from, you know, a Kiwi living in New Zealand about that whole little debate that happened out front of Kirribilli House. So, I want to move on. Have you been watching SB Dub over in the Super League playing for the Toronto Wolfpack?
Big time, closely, because I got to know Sonny Bill only through he was eating at a vegan cafe in Parnell very regularly and got to close up, you know, chat to the guy and, huge respect as a human being and for what he stands for. Look, obviously it hasn't been easy for him, but he's playing under a friggin' microscope. And to move from rugby back to league, I think that, you know, his leadership skills,
what he brings to that team,
what he brings to that team,
the non-tangibles.
That's right,
100%.
And look, I think be careful what you wish for rugby league, because should the Americans get their laughing gear around, and the Canadians obviously with the Wolves, but when the sport goes global, and this is what the New Zealand Rugby Union is finding, it's no longer yours. You know, where the All Blacks have been, no question, the finest rugby team in the history of all rugby, those days are numbered.
Other than the Wallabies.
That's right. But it's, you know, we're under real duress, because as the sport goes global, we've got to get used to dropping more games than we ever have.
100%.
Particularly if the Americans figure it out, then you can just forget about who your All Blacks are.
And I've got immense respect for Sonny Bill Williams on the grounds that, like, he's going back and he's sort of getting a bit on in his career, but he's still he's answered the Federer, you know, he's answered the challenge, and he said, you know, like, I'm going over there on this huge paycheck, and they expect 2004 Sonny Bill Williams, and that's a hard thing to deliver.
No, they got him cheap. They got him for Mexican pesos. That was a good. When I saw that deal, I thought that he was worth what he's going to bring to that club. They couldn't spend that sort of money elsewhere. And get the profile that he's get it. So look, even though it might be bad press in terms of how he's playing, they're still in the news.
And like it's a hard transition, because obviously the Wolfpack, when they played second tier, they were just pretty dominant. They were pretty dominant. I mean, the final that they played where my boy Blakey Wallace, shout out Blake, you usually watch this, I don't know if you have, I can't keep up with the spread, but he's over there at the moment. He was playing in the centres for the recent game. I think it was against St. Helens. So he was marking up on Kevin Agama, former NRL player, I'm pretty sure. Don't quote me on that. But so Blakey's over there, and he's a Rockhampton boy, Central Queensland. He originally came from New South Wales. And he's killing it over there at the moment, living his dream. And like I was talking before, you know, like perfect example of a person that, man, should get a shot in the NRL. Warriors, if anyone from the Warriors is listening, Blake Wallace, Toronto Wolfpack.
But I think with the Wolfpack, you know, that they have been assembled as a group of players, and gluing them together and getting them to play their Wolfpack style, whatever that's going to be, and the travel that they have to do, they're up against it as a side. And so they're making up numbers at the moment. But I think as far as putting the sport on the map in that part of the world,
100%,
just fantastic.
And the thing about it is, there's so many players in that have come from the NRL or come from the Super League that are playing in it now. Class acts. You know, and there's a thing about class acts is that, you know, they might, you know, if they're out of form now, they're not going to be out of form forever.
That's right.
You know, Sonny Bill Williams, perfect example, is, you know, give him a few games. He's only going to take one good game in good condition, dry paddock, clean set of heels. He'll burn someone, and then boom, Sonny Bill of old.
But, you know, like you said before about Simon Mannering when he retired, when you get close to Sonny Bill, it's the same deal. Don't know what it is about the dude, but he just got it.
And everyone you listen to on different podcasts, and like I've got here written down, Bloke in a Bar, Denning Kemp.
Oh yeah, he's great.
Great podcast, man, because he's all like we've sort of been today is. Whilst we're talking about issues, we're trying to stay positive about them. You know, like we're not being too negative or critical. We're trying to keep it positive, and that's what Kempy does really well in the NRL. Is he just talks positive news stories, tries to keep it positive, And he's
Look, no
interviewed.
disrespect to Denham, but I was wondering if someone else was writing the scripts for him because he's very insightful. He reads play really well. When he plays his little video bits and he's one of the more enjoyable guys to listen to.
Yeah, and I mean, he is an ex-Warrior, so that's sort of,
Yeah, look, I remember him well because he's kind of my era when they got him over from the Broncos, and he had speed to burn. And
it's the beak, mate.
Yeah,
it's the beak, mate. Aerodynamic. You ask him, mate. It's the aerodynamics. But they always talk about SBW, and they talk about how he is just the ultimate professional, and that's you're talking about before they got him for pennies on the dollar.
Yeah,
it's what he brings in the non-tangibles,
yes.
and that will be training ethic. That'll be all that sort of stuff. So brilliant. We're sort of hitting that good period of the day where we've had a good chat about politics, we've had a good chat about footy, we've had a good chat about all that good stuff. What I want to talk about is the top 5 blokes you'll go on a Mad Monday with and why. So we'll talk about.
Look,
you do your 5, I'll do my 5.
I've struggled to come up with 5, but I tell you, in terms of some non-negotiables, if I was going away on a Mad Monday or actually anything, I'd want to spend some time with Willie Winiata. Right, he's just somebody that we just talked about. Sonny Bill. There's obviously some magic about this man, and I would like to see up close what. Now, obviously, Mad Monday's not only probably the ideal place to be doing that, although Willie would probably disagree.
And they are getting phased out. They're not cool anymore in the PC world we live in. But
the nut job that Craig Bellamy appears to be, I would love to spend some time. Those sort of spews that he has that look like a tsunami of spit. I would love to see that up close and personal.
So we've got Willie, we got the bellyache.
Yeah, and then really just the third guy is Joe Rogan, the podcast.
Have to be.
Yeah, that nut job I would just love to see, because if he can do that behind a microphone, get him out on a Mad Monday, and we go to another universe.
Imagine. Oh, mate, Joe Rogan would just be, it would be immense. Just off the record with him, what you get up to, the stuff because he's so open-minded and just no bars.
Well, that's right. He just pulls fresh ideas and gets you to think. And, so that's my 3, Willie, Craig and Joe.
Cool. We'll go 3. Yeah, it'll be easier 3. So I've thought about, like, I always think about, who I would do Mad Mondays with. And I can't go past the Johns brothers, Andrew Johns, Matty Johns, together.
Yep,
would just be. I look at that.
Well, you'll probably be waking up in the same jail cell together.
But like, you look at that Newcastle Premiership and the rare footage that's available.
Yeah,
absolute legends of the game. And they were immense football players, and everyone just holds them in such high regard.
That's when they had O'Davis at fullback, right? They had
Robbie O.
And
Robbie O, I actually, funny story is when I used to play touch over in Australia, we had Robbie O. Davis used to do fitness camps with us, right?
Yep.
I have never met a fitter human. Maybe Ruben Wiki. I've trained with Ruben Wiki. And, he's an immense trainer. I was never a good trainer. Still aren't. I'm a terrible trainer. I hate training. But Robbie O. Davis come over and run one of our Sunshine Coast touch comps, and he was telling a yarn about how he run a marathon after drinking like half a dozen beers or a dozen beers of schooners. Like, how, I don't even know how that's possible. Like, if I drank one schooner and tried to run like 5Ks, I'd vomit. Yet he just absolutely nailed like a keg and then run a marathon easy.
I suspect those Irish genes there kind of got him home.
But so I've got the 2 Johns brothers, and I'm gonna have to throw probably for my 3rd one. It'll be Blake Wallace. So I touched on Blake Wallace earlier. Not he's a relative unknown. But I've had the privilege of spilling a few handles with him over the years, and wowee, he is a funny man. So if I could put the 2 Johns brothers and Blake Wallace in the room together, she'd be funny. So that's my 3.
Cool.
What else can we cover off on today? Well, we've got about 5 minutes. Let's have a chat with you.
I'd like to jump in on something that everyone's talking about, and that's obviously coronavirus, which is no joke. It's shit that's going down globally. But we talked about journalism and media, and I'm just going to hold this up for the camera, right? So this is Saturday's Herald, and this is the headline that was on Saturday's Herald. If you can read this, that word there says pandemonium. So apparently that's the state that New Zealand is in, because we've got one coronavirus case here. And anybody that knows what pandemonium means, it's Latin. Demonium is the place of the demon, and pan is global. So all places of the demon. Really? New Zealand? That's us? Pandemonium? I don't know what's going on at the New Zealand Herald, but it seems that in 2019, every friggin' prophet of doom and catastrophist crawled out from under their rocks and were telling us that the sky was falling. And it now seems I've got friggin' jobs at the Herald.
Well,
got no idea what's going on there. But, hey, New Zealand Herald, can you please stop this shit and start writing about some good stuff? Because even though I read your paper every day, it's torture.
Yep, fair. And you know, a lot of business people, I know I see it on LinkedIn quite a bit. They echo the same sentiments. Is that, you know, it sells.
But that's just it. This is they might as well have a hot deal for you on the inside, because all that there is to make you buy that.
100%.
Right, that's what that is. So that's,
You could make a case for good business.
Yeah, how do you base quality journalism on in and around that? The headline is just now. Nothing's new. That's what headlines do. But when we go to the level of pandemonium, what are they going to write there when the shit really hits the fan, like a couple pass or whatever, you know, then it's kind of like, you know, we're done.
Well, because we're at pandemonium because we've got
I don't know what the
case.
Next level is.
We've got one case, and so there's been no fatalities. There's been someone's just been quarantined, and I don't know what the stage is. I don't read newspapers, so I try not to. But yeah, you're right. So we're at pandemonium when we've got one confirmed case, no fatalities. So you're right. What happens when
what that is that what you've got is a print product like a newspaper is a friggin' hard sell.
100%.
When SARS was around, they wouldn't have gone to that level, but now because it's such a hard sell, they've got to go to that level. So in terms of, you know, Dante's 9 circles of hell and hell, I don't know where pandemonium sits on that, but whatever we go to next, that we must be getting to rock bottom. You know, as far as the standards of journalism are concerned.
100%, and it's hard. It'd be a hard gig for to try and sell print. So I agree with what you're saying, but I look at them and I go, man, they've got to try and make their dollars somehow. So they.
Oh well, the people that would have made their dollars with their sales would be the sales reps that are selling bloody hand sanitizer. They've hit their budgets. It's all cleaned off the supermarket.
And the people
that take leave
that are selling the masks.
The masks, Bunnings is cleaned out of builders' masks.
So that's you know, that's where we're at with that.
And I think that just on that pandemonium thing, the question that I ask myself is that in this era where values alignment, that, you know, we truly do roll, and we've just talked about politicians, but the journalists themselves, what type of business is the values alignment of let's print that? You know, and what are we really trying to say? Because if you took that seriously, or do you just not take that seriously?
Well, this is the thing, and this circles back to how I gave Bloke in a Bar a shout out before, is because the ICE project. So Isaac John, that used to play for the Warriors as well, he's got a podcast as well, and they're so focused on good news stories and just trying to bring some positivity back in the world, because. Like, imagine if we got to a point in time where a newspaper, the clickbait was a positive news story. Imagine that. Imagine the mental health of the world where a positive news story was like, oh, shit, let's get that paper.
Well, you know, what you're after is as close to the truth that you think it should be as far as well-researched journalism. And when you see a headline like that, you already start off with doubts, right? But there are people that will probably take that seriously, which is why there were queues in supermarkets all weekend, you know, buying shit like there was going to be no tomorrow. But, you know, hey, just at the beginning of this, we kicked off and talking about challenges in small business, and I think to tie into politics, you know, we talked about Chris Luxon joining the National Party. That is a hell of a masterstroke in terms of business for them, because it's clear that even though, do you remember when this government appointed the Small Business Council, which was led by Tembi Powell, and the Business Advisory Council? So that was 2 years ago, 2018.
I don't know anything about that, but you'll give me the
Their job was basically to because there was a perception that this government really had no relationship with business, which was kind of right. And so Tembi was basically reporting back on the small business community, us, and Chris was reporting back on the shiny end of town, so the big business community. I think that the masterstroke from National's perspective is that clearly when Chris got in there on that council and he sat opposite Jacinda and her ministers, and he saw that the top 6 ministers in this government had never been in business before. He ran off and signed up with the National Party because he saw their Achilles heel. You know? And I think that so in terms of from a business perspective and taking business seriously, National are bringing to the table that they mean business.
Good.
Now,
and that's good because there's so many SMEs in New Zealand.
But in terms of bringing to the table how they mean business, that the contradictory side of that is that you can't be a tree-hugging environmentalist that's going to be sustainable to the end of time if you're going to be big business, right? So what they need to do as far as values alignment is say, this is our mandate. We're going to get the country cracking again. And I think that this is where I'm encouraged by that part of it. So when I said earlier I couldn't get my vote out and give it to National, if they keep talking along these lines, I'll be able to relate. That's my lingo. You know, it's not everybody's out there that's a voter. But from a business perspective, we need a government that's actually telling us that they get it, that, it's friggin', because no one understands small business that's in government because it's too big. It's like trying to unscramble eggs.
Yep.
You go from the profitable to the completely unviable all in two businesses or three businesses next to each other.
Yeah, and I mean...
And government don't care. It's just tax and it's, regulation.
And tax.
Yeah,
and tax,
that's right.
And tax.
So,
and tax.
So basically riding the back of that small business community is something where this shit has just got to stop.
I like it. That was a good little...
Rant?
Little,
Yeah.
little rhetoric to finish on. So thank you, everyone, tuning in. Thank you to my man V-Dubs for coming in
Thanks,
today.
bro. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And tune in next week for another episode of Mad Mondays with JB.
Take care.
Peace.